Star Trek has a lot of great characters. One of those characters is Lieutenant Commander Data. Now, Data is an android, an artificial life form created by a human being. But I think that even though he is a robot, in a sense, I think he is still one of the most human characters in the whole show. If you like videos about lore and other media, then consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sticking around. So, without further ado, let's just jump in. Why do I think that an android was in any way human? I mean, Data did not even have emotions. How could he be human? And I think we need to look at what it means to be human. Because when people say human, do we mean purely genetic? Because in our world, there are plenty of humans who do, for example, something horrible, and then they are not considered humans. They are considered devils and something of that nature. And even though they have a human DNA, they do things, they act in a way that is not human. So maybe humanity, being human, is not purely a genetic thing. It's more about behavior. We apply that to Data, then sure, he was an android, but he acted in a very human way, even without emotions. I think a very good way to look at this is, let's say you took a human and you remove that human's emotions. So we do have humans in history who have had a lack of emotions. Now, usually those people are called psychopaths, but that's usually, I believe, because they lack that control. They lack that moral compass, which Data did have. He did not have emotions, but he never did something that was wrong inherently, right? He always acted, even without emotions, but he always acted the right way. He did, do mistakes, but he never did anything inherently evil, like a lot of humans have done with their emotions. I think a good contrast is his brother Lore. Now, he had a brother which was basically the same as him, only his brother had a defect in his wiring that made him inherently evil. Basically, his brother was like the black part of no, no, I don't mean like that. It's like black and white. Like the difference between them was black and white. And essentially, his brother, during the show, got an emotional chip, a chip that allowed him to experience emotions. And even with this emotional chip, Lore never displayed that humanity that people like Picard had, people like Riker and other human characters. He never acted human, even though he had these emotions. So, what Data was always trying to accomplish was be human, but I think that through his actions, through his, hopes and dreams, he was human. He always acted in a human way, right? And I think one of the episodes in Star Trek kind of touches upon this subject of kind of proving that Data is human. Not really saying it out loud, but kind of implying it. And that is the episode Measure of Man, where uh, where basically Starfleet requests to take Data and disassemble him to learn how he works and then produce more Datas. And they fight in court to protect Data's rights, because what Jean-Luc Picard, the captain, was saying and motioning for is that Data was just a being. He was a sentient being with a soul, a consciousness, and he should not, and he did have rights essentially. And as we all know, Data did win that case, and even though he was an android, he gained rights. So in the Star Trek universe, you don't have to be a biological being inherently to have rights. Now, we could look at somebody like the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager, but we do see that through the course of the show, the Doctor does gain a certain sentience and a certain affinity to humanity and to being original, that he does also gain these rights. He does not remain purely a holographic program. So when we really look at Data, he may not have, this emotional quality that humans have, but I think that a lot of humans also don't have this emotional quality, right? I think that humanity is not only bound by a biological body. I think a good thought experiment would be to imagine if we transferred human consciousness into a robot brain, would that being still be human or not? And I think the answer is yeah, it still would be human because the humanity resides in the brain. So I think the humanity, it's not inherently, first of all, it's not inherently about a biological body that looks human, which in Star Trek, I believe, First Contact, Data, the queen, the Borg queen, gave him this gift of human skin, but that human skin did not make him human. So the body is not necessarily an extension of being human. You don't need to be a physical, like biological human being to act in a human way. So when I say Data was human, I'm not purely looking at the fact that he was just a bunch of nuts and bolts. I'm looking at the fact of how he acted, what his intentions were. Throughout the series of Star Trek, we get to see his kind of wish to become human, and in that wish, it becomes human. I think he already is human when he wants to do these things. His quest to do art and to participate in music and to create beautiful things, art pieces, is one of the things that immediately, in my eyes, makes him human. He even has dreams. I think there was an episode where he experienced dreams, which is, I think, simply him going also beyond his programming. But as we know, he does have the capability of going beyond his programming, which is also inherently human. Because whenever you're born, whenever you learn something, whenever you live in a certain way, you always have the ability to not only change, but also improve yourself. That's why you sometimes lay in bed at 3 a.m. thinking, "Oh my God," like about some awful memory that not awful, but awkward memory that you have where you acted in a bad way. You're like, "Oh man, I can't believe I ever did that. Like, I don't want anybody remembering that I did that." Because that's what it means to be human. It means to improve constantly. And I think the best comparison of, let's say, all right, what is the best human? I think the best human in Star Trek is Jean-Luc Picard. He is the epitome of humanity because throughout the show, now this is a whole different topic about Picard. He is obviously a great human being. I think he is okay. Not gonna talk about that now. But essentially, if we like look at Data and Jean-Luc Picard, the only difference between them, at least in my eyes, is the lack of biological ability. So the lack of emotions and the lack of understanding social cues at first. But if you look at like a kid, if we look at a human child, human kids also struggle with reading emotional cues and understanding deeper topics. So while Data may be well versed in, let's say, theoretical physics or applied physics or quantum mechanics, he may not necessarily understand the things that weren't programmed, weren't given to him. Because when a human is born, he doesn't have a database downloaded into the brain. He has to, over time, acquire it. So for a human, it's a bit different. But Data, he, through his existence on Enterprise, he doesn't stay the same. While Lore, his brother, he did, because Lore is the best example of an android that was not human. He did have a sort of consciousness, but he never wanted to improve himself. He never wanted to be better. All he ever did was do evil. That's usually what he did. Now, I don't want to demean him in terms of, I don't want to demean the character of him in terms of, oh, he was just an evil guy doing evil things for the sake of doing evil things. No, that's not what I want to imply because it goes deeper. I'm not that well versed with with Lore's kind of like character building. But I understand that he never did what Data did with having, first of all, a moral compass, which is a key part of being a natural human, of knowing right and wrong. And he never had this affinity for improving himself. Now he did have this like he wanted to improve himself, but not for the same reasons as Data. He wanted to improve himself to gain to just gain personal satisfaction, to get power. Data just wanted to be human, right? Got the chip purely for his own like benefit. He never thought about other people. And I think one of the best things that separates a human from a non-human is empathy, is the ability to have empathy. Now, that's not the only quality, and I'm not saying that anybody who doesn't have empathy is not human. That's just something that, like, one of those things that Lord did not have empathy. Lord did not understand it, nor he wanted to understand it. But Data, he did. He wanted to understand this kind of like empathy and other things. And even when Data does get the emotion chip in the movies, he doesn't become he struggles with it, and he doesn't necessarily, well, he does become in a sense more human. He doesn't necessarily become like, just the perfect human. He still has a long way to go. So that's basically my thoughts for why I think personally Data was human. I think that when we boil it down to the base details, being human is not purely about having just human DNA. It's a little bit more than that, right? And I think humanity being a human, having a soul. Now, I don't believe necessarily in souls, but I rather believe that you are the basically collective ability of your brain. So everything you have experienced, everything you have learned, that ties into precisely who you are, and it's how you react to people, to things, to information that defines what kind of person you are. So I don't believe in like the soul, but that's my beliefs. Don't That's just my subjective opinion on that matter. So yeah, so that's kind of my messy reasoning for why I believe Data was human all along. Because from the start, from when we look at the show, he had these abilities, these intentions from the start. He didn't randomly at some point gain them. So throughout the show, he was human. He was just a human that lacked some biological abilities, right? If you removed the emotions from Picard, would have still been Picard. He would have just not had emotions, right? So yeah, so I'm blabbering on too long about this. I hope you enjoyed the video, right? As I said before, subscribe, right? If you liked it, leave a like. If you disliked it, don't leave a dislike. Just comment, constructive criticism. That's the best type of criticism. And hope you enjoyed, right? Hope this video was good today. I don't know, man. Today I talked pretty okay. Last video I couldn't properly talk. Today I'm feeling much better. That's weird. It's, personal subjective feelings. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Live long and prosper.